Actors Johnny Depp and Amber Hurd met on the set of a movie. They fell in love and got married. They quickly became one of Hollywood's hottest couples, but their relationship did not last. And within 15 months, it was over. Amber accused Johnny of domestic abuse and wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post talking about being a survivor. Johnny says all the publicity surrounding their breakup and the allegations of abuse destroyed his career. So now Johnny is in court suing Amber for defamation and for $50 million.
Ms. Hurd's false allegations had a significant impact on Mr. Depp's family and his ability to work.
Johnny says the allegations are false, and he is the true victim of abuse, accusing Amber of throwing a vodka bottle at him in Australia and severing his finger.
Part of his finger was missing. Again, I can't recall specifics other than they had a fight.
Tonight, we have all the latest from Fairfax County, Virginia, in the bitter battle between Johnny Depp and Amber Hurd. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And through my 2 decades of covering the nation's biggest trials, there are certain days, certain witnesses, certain moments that I remember forever. The really big ones. Tomorrow is one of those days. Big breaking news this afternoon. Johnny Depp scheduled to take the stand tomorrow in Fairfax County, Virginia. Our cameras, our microphones inside the courtroom. You'll see and hear all of the testimony. Then, of course, tomorrow night we'll have all the big moments for you. Big, big headline today. We're going to bring in Chanley Payne to talk about it in just a little bit. But I wanted to start tonight talking about what happened during the COVID lockdown, COVID shutdown, when people were locked in their houses and weren't having interaction with people from the outside. Something that we noticed here on the show was this incredible rise in the amount of domestic violence around the country. We saw the numbers, we covered the stories. It was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking, whether it's spouses, children, whoever, isolated from the rest of the world. So there isn't that interaction with teachers and coworkers and friends and family. So behind closed doors, domestic violence was literally exploding around America. Extremely tragic and so dangerous. So extremely dangerous. And it wasn't relegated to any particular type of person. It was across the board. It doesn't matter if you're super rich and you got all the money in the world. That's not protection from domestic violence. Not at all. It happens everywhere. Now, let's get back to Fairfax County, Virginia, and what this case ultimately is about and what the jury has to figure out about the truth. Amber Hurd has accused Johnny Depp of domestic violence. She did it years ago. She wrote an op-ed talking about being, a spokesperson, a representative of domestic violence and being a survivor. And before that, she actually did accuse Johnny Depp, filed the complaint. There was a protective order. It was ultimately dismissed. It was taken back and didn't go forward as they settled their divorce. But make no mistakes, we heard in the opening statements. Amber Hurd has accused Johnny Depp of domestic violence. Now, on the other side of the courtroom, Johnny Depp has accused Amber Hurd of domestic violence as well. And really the biggest outburst or incident that there's been a lot of focus on is when Johnny Depp severed his finger. And allegations, we heard in the opening statements, allegations that it was Amber Hurd who was responsible, throwing that vodka bottle at Johnny and severing his finger. So you've got him accusing her of domestic violence. She's accusing him of domestic violence. Ultimately, yes, it's a defamation case, but it will be up to the jury to figure out the truth in all of this. What was going on behind closed doors? Sometimes it's difficult to figure out. And when you're like Johnny Depp and you've got penthouses, and you've got an ability to be shielded from other people. And you know how when two people together that aren't right for each other, things get volatile, something happened. And there's enough here to clearly see that something did happen, but exactly what did happen will be up to the jury to figure out. But as I said, Johnny Depp taking the stand tomorrow will give them an opportunity to hear his version firsthand. Now, to set the foundation for his testimony and the incident involving the finger, we've heard some testimony about that already from other witnesses. So the jury goes into that, hearing from the lawyers and then hearing from the witnesses, and then tomorrow they'll hear from Johnny Depp. But first, let's listen to what they've heard already.
In March 2015, you traveled down to Australia to attend to Mr. Depp, is that right?
Yes.
After you attended to Mr. Depp and before you went to the hospital with him, did you go inside the house?
I went into the home to see the home. I went in to instruct one of the people with him to look for the tip of the finger, hoping that we would be able to put it back.
Was the tip of the finger found?
It was found.
Who found it?
I believe this man was their chef.
And do you know where he found it or where he told you he found it?
He said he found it in the kitchen area.
No, there was a text message where you got a text message from Mr. Depp.
Yes.
And he said he cut his finger, correct?
I think that's what it said, yes.
Okay. And the reference from the emergency room said that Mr. Depp had sliced his finger with a knife, correct?
Yes, that's what he told, because I was present for that. That's what he told the emergency room doctor.
Do you recall going to Mr. Depp's house after learning that he had cut his finger?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
That we went to the house and I don't even think I went in at first. Dr. Kipper went in and he had cut his finger and we took him to the emergency room.
Do you have any understanding as to how Mr. Depp cut his finger?
I heard different stories from people.
What were the different stories you heard?
I had heard that Amber threw a bottle of vodka at him. I had heard that he slammed it with a phone.
Still got to figure out the truth. We'll hear what Johnny Depp has to say as he describes that moment. But right now, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, live from Fairfax County tonight. Great to see you, Chanley. Let's start with the big headline. Johnny Depp on the stand tomorrow?
That's right, Vinny. We're expecting him late morning. Of course, his private security, his bodyguard, Sean Bett, under cross-examination first thing in the morning when this trial gets underway. We're also expecting to hear from his sound engineer of many years to take the stand for him, and then Johnny Depp himself. And as we previously discussed, Vinny, he should be on the stand for a while. The rest of the day, probably cross-examination into Wednesday. So this will be a huge moment for his case.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about, him on the stand and how he presents himself. From everything that we've heard so far on those audio tapes, seems reserved, seems very thoughtful at times, but this is going to be very emotional. I mean, he's got to go through the whole relationship and everything else. His story, though, when it comes to this finger, what is the Johnny Depp version of how his finger ended up severed?
Well, this occurred in Australia in 2015, about a month after he married Amber Hurd. We've heard a lot of testimony, of course, over the last several days about their time in Australia. According to Johnny Depp, his version of events is that Amber Hurd threw a vodka bottle at him during a fight in the couple, and that severed his finger. He is right there in the cast, recovering from that finger. And so he paints it as though she's the one who started this fight and the one that was attacking him. Now, as you can imagine, Amber Heard's version is quite different. We heard in opening statements that she anticipates in her testimony, in her case, when it starts, Vinnie, that she was held hostage for 3 days while Johnny Depp was on a 3-day blackout with drugs and alcohol, and that he physically abused her, he sexually abused her, and that he cut his own finger. And that's what severed it. And we heard testimony from the doctor today that he had told the ER doctor when he was taken to the emergency room that he did cut his own finger. But again, his story is that he was just covering up for the fact that his wife allegedly had thrown this bottle at him and destroyed his finger.
So, of all the incidents and these attacks, one way or the other, depending upon your perspective on all this, it seems the most volatile situation was down in Australia.
A lot of the testimony has revolved around what happened in Australia. It definitely is the most damage, quote unquote, damage to Johnny Depp that had occurred in any of the alleged abuse or allegations back and forth. His bodyguard today showed some photos to the jury of injuries that they say were caused to Johnny Depp by Amber Hurd, and you see some of the red marks and some of the swelling, but a severed finger, that was the most extreme injury. So I think that's why we're hearing so much about what happened. And of course, according to her, it was a 3-day ordeal, one of the longest lasting ordeals. And remember, only about a month or so after the two were married, we also hear the name Marilyn Manson thrown in there a lot while in Australia. So again, Johnny Depp will give his side of the story, what happened when he takes the stand, and of course, Amber has a very different story.
Absolutely. All right, Chanley Painter staying with us. Let's bring in our other guests with us tonight. In Los Angeles, California, forensic psychologist, criminologist, Dr. Nadim Karim is with us. Also in LA, California law attorney, TikTok lawyer, Lamar Mojdahizad. Got it, right? Did I get it?
Perfect.
Excellent. Also with, and you can also check her out on TikTok at Lawyer Lamar, L-I-M-O-R. And in Atlanta, Georgia, trial attorney, family law attorney, law professor, Randy Kessler with us. So, all right, we got the A-listers here tonight. Doctor, I'll begin with you. This severed finger situation, two completely different versions of what happened. But to me, this signifies this was an extremely volatile relationship. You've got, on the one hand, describing a 3-day blackout where she's held hostage in Australia, and then you've got him with a severed finger in Australia. This was bad.
Absolutely, it's bad. It's egregious. And the bottom line is, now that Johnny's going to be taking the stand, his ability to really convince the jury that it wasn't a fact of self-inflicted injury, but it was in fact an injury that happened at the hands of Amber Hurd, is going to be paramount. And my position is, and from a clinical perspective, how is Johnny going to convince them? And one of the things that I've learned over like the 7,500 cases that I've worked on, perhaps testified on a couple of hundred of those, Vinnie, is his body language. I mean, look how he looks right now. His hair is tied back. He's got glasses on. They basically have listened to your show from Friday evening and said, hey, Johnny, let's clean this up and let's present in a way where you're actually believable. And one of the things that I do is I turn my chair to the jury and I make eye contact with them, unless it's a yes or no answer. And I use the opportunity to educate them on my opinion. They may not agree ultimately, but I'm not trying to be convincing and throw my ego into the mix. I'm just saying, hey, this is my clinical opinion. I am credible, I'm the expert, and this is why you should believe me. And for Johnny, he's gonna come forward with all of his acting prowess and his talent to make that connection with the jury, Vinnie, and really be able to not sell them, but tell them the truth in his own words, that this injury was not self-inflicted.
Lamar, I know you're in the middle of Hollywood with all these stars, but this is a rare moment when you have someone of this stature in Hollywood going into a courtroom and talking about the most personal details of his life. How do you expect Johnny Depp to be on the stand when he's got to tell his version, his story of what happened?
It's an unbelievable story, and I think that Johnny is going to tap into possibly his acting skills and exactly what the doctor was saying, his ability to show the jury that he's going to be emotional. Things that have occurred, they are the truth. He's been pulling his attorney's chair out for her to take a seat during the trial. He knows the jury is watching. He knows people at home are watching. He knows the cameras are on him. So
Lamar, are you saying that he's putting, are you saying he's putting on an act? That he is going to put on a show, that he's not going to get up there and tell the truth?
I think that he's going to tell the truth in a performative way, in a very storytelling way, chronological order. He's going to be on point. I believe he's going to be honest, and I don't think that the law and facts are on his side. So that honesty, I don't think is going to win the case for him. But again, we're dealing with a jury, so how much does that even matter?
Randy Kessler, this is a bitter battle. How do you explain to folks who are watching at home tonight that you've got two different versions on how a finger gets severed?
Boy, well, you do it with other witnesses, right? This other witness, the doctor, he didn't report that she did it to him when the doctor didn't have any notes about that. There was no blood on the bottle that apparently severed the finger. You have to use the other evidence because you've got two people that are fully capable of telling a story that's believable.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Randy, because they're both actors, right? But Johnny Depp's Johnny Depp. I mean, he's been in the spotlight for 4 decades. Does he have an advantage in front of a jury, regardless of who it is? Looks like it's a bunch of young men, by the way. But does he have a built-in advantage in selling his version of what happened here?
I'm not so sure because, you know, people have reputations. He's a reputation as a great actor. I think they may discount his testimony. They may say, was he telling the truth or was that an act? You know, a normal person, you believe them, but he's good at acting. I think they might bend over backwards to dig and to be suspicious of his testimony. So he's got that maybe even backfiring against him. It's going to be hard. He's got to be authentic. And if he does anything that looks like an actor, anything that looks too smooth, too calculated, too prepared, it may well backfire. They may not believe anything else he says.
Doctor, I expect him to be charming on the stand. That's the way he's been described. He's all, you know, when you are in that position for 4 decades, you kind of get used to people looking at you and judging you in every moment. And I think he understands that. Does it come across as genuine? Will there be any indicators that he's putting on a show? Is there a way to read between the lines with this guy?
I think it depends on the jury's interpretation of his charisma, Vinny. And what I mean by that is he could come across as Kentucky bluegrass smooth.
Not with that accent. Well, that's not a Kentucky. I've been to Kentucky. They don't talk like that in Kentucky.
Well, just that charming old school kind of, I'm just a simple guy. This is my story. This is why you should believe me. Forget about the Hollywood. Forget about the music. Forget about it all. I lost my finger and this woman damaged not only my reputation, but basically took a piece of my body. So in that context, his ability to be charismatic in a storytelling role, in his truth, could be convincing as far as his charisma. The flip side of that is what our learned friend just discussed in terms of the jury just seeing through it and saying, yeah, he's just playing a role here. It's almost like he's on the stand playing a defendant in a trial, trying to convince us of believing his side. Oh, and let's not forget, there's $50 million involved here. Doesn't need the money, but the fact is, he's going to want to clean his reputation so he can land the next big payday.
That's what it's all about. It's all about what he's saying tomorrow. Lamar, we only have about 10 seconds left in this segment, but your thoughts about his real audience in the courtroom, at least, is like a bunch of 20-year-old men. What do you think about that?
They love him. They love Johnny Depp. The audience loves him. The jury loves him. The courtroom loves him.
All right. They're staying with us the whole hour tonight. Dr. Nadim Karim, Lamar Mojdahizad, and Randy Kessler. When we come back, Johnny Depp testified once already over in the UK. Of course, we've got someone who was there, saw it all. He's going to tell us what it was like, what we should expect tomorrow when we return.
UC.edu.
Then, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. There's absolutely nothing false about that statement. First of all, the evidence will show that Amber did suffer domestic abuse at the hands of Johnny Depp. And it took many forms. Physical, sure, but also emotional, verbal, psychological abuse. That's all domestic abuse that she suffered at his hands.
And that ultimately is what this case is about. Johnny Depp says that's all a lie, and he's got to prove that it's all a lie, and he'll attempt to do that tomorrow when he takes the witness stand. In the meantime, let's not forget there are other witnesses, other evidence that this jury and the public is considering and trying to figure out what happened between these two. Let's listen to more testimony about Amber Hurd's injuries that she says she suffered at the hands of Johnny Depp.
In working with Amber and Mr. Depp, did Amber ever report to you any physical violence on behalf of Mr. Depp toward Amber?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing photos from Amber Hurd?
I have, but I don't remember when I saw them.
What do you recall about the photos?
Her face was bruised.
Do you recall where on her face you saw, on Amber's face you saw bruises?
I think they were around her eyes, but I couldn't be positive.
Do you remember seeing Miss Hurd in Australia?
Yes.
Did you ever see any injuries on Miss Hurd when she was in Australia?
Yes.
What did you see?
A bruise on her arm.
So how will Johnny Depp explain that and deal with that when he gets on the witness stand tomorrow? Let's bring in a special guest to talk about all this. Joining me from Fairfax County, Virginia, journalist from the UK who covered Depp's libel trial in London, Nick Wallace, back with us. Great to see you, Nick. Thanks for coming back.
Hey, Vinnie.
Let's start with your reaction, first of all, tomorrow, Johnny Depp on the stand. What do you expect that moment to be like?
Oh, something interesting. I mean, today was a day of teeth-grindingly slow evidence where witnesses who were clinicians were very formal and very limited and guarded in their responses. And I think, given what's at stake here, you would hope that Johnny Depp would open up about his own experiences and perhaps be given the opportunity to tell a story. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed in contrast with the English justice system is that so many times questions can be picked off as lacking foundation or being leading in some way, or answers being full of speculation or irrelevance. Whereas in the UK, you're invited to speculate, and leading questions are given a huge amount of leeway. And so people are able to develop their thoughts and develop their arguments and perhaps sometimes give themselves enough rope. So I don't know how much evidence is going to come out tomorrow, but today was really, really difficult for any amount of information getting itself through to a jury, which they are going to be able to make a decision on. And I think it means that so much more is riding on what happens over the next couple of days, because the principal, the plaintiff, is in the witness box.
So, Nick, how did he explain these injuries that Amber Hurd had, that, you know, the bruises, the black eyes? How was that explained in the UK trial by Johnny Depp?
Well, most of the time he was defending his own recollection against an onslaught from the NGN QC, the defendant in that particular trial, the Sun newspaper, for his own memory. I mean, the picture of him was painted as a drug-fueled and alcohol-fueled person who was not in control of his actions and had very little recollection of what was going on when he was under the influence. And the Queen's Counsel, the QC, the attorney in that case, managed to successfully persuade a judge that he had committed acts of domestic violence and his recollection of them was entirely false. But I mean, memory is a very, very strange thing. We know it's inherently unreliable. When you multiply that by time and mind-altering substances, it becomes entirely plastic in what a recollection can be. And when we go back to the injury allegedly caused by the vodka bottle or the knife or the phone, you wonder whether the truth is ever going to come out. I mean, just to give you an example today, Sean Bett, the security lead security man for Johnny Depp, said today in court that when he turned up in one of the ECB penthouses and surprised Amber Heard, who was in the middle of an argument with Johnny Depp, he said in court today that she told Johnny Depp, "This is the last time that you do this to me." And yet 2 years ago, in his witness statement at the UK trial, she said, "If he hits me one more time, I'm calling the police." So Sean Bett's memory of that event is entirely different in terms of what Amber Heard said. And it's changed in the course of the last 2 years. This is why nailing what actually happened in this trial and in this whole toxic relationship is so contentious and so open to interpretation, because people's memories are inherently fallible.
Tell me about Johnny Depp, how you're seeing him right now inside the courtroom versus how he was in the UK. Is it a similar sort of demeanor? Do you see any difference in the way he is comporting himself inside this courtroom in the United States versus overseas?
No, in the United States, he's been a charm personified. Obviously, we haven't heard him say anything. In the UK, he was very much the same person, same sort of haircut. I never saw him tie it back like he had it tied back today. But he was a very charming person to everyone around him, and he went out of his way to be super polite to both the attorney who was questioning him very aggressively and the judge as well, who were the only two people he was required to talk to. So his comportment was very, very similar. And so I'm expecting tomorrow we are going to see a very charming Hollywood star doing his best to persuade the jury that his version of events is correct.
Now, in the UK, Amber Heard was not she wasn't a party to that case, so she wasn't in the courtroom during his testimony, was she last time?
Yes, she was. This is the way, because of COVID and social distancing and the amount of solicitors and lawyers who were involved in that case, the journalists were hived off into one court, 38, and there were two other overflow courts for spectators and lawyers, and then the principals and their main lawyers were in the main court, court number 5. And Amber Heard was able to watch the witness evidence. I mean, we saw a witness getting kicked out of the trial in the US last week because she'd seen little snippets of what other witnesses had said. You haven't got that in the UK. You're allowed to sit there and be present for other witness evidence, and it doesn't affect what the judge thinks of, or it shouldn't affect your evidence or what the judge thinks of your evidence. So Amber Heard was able to witness what Johnny Depp was saying because he went first, and then she was able to give her evidence afterwards.
All right, Nick, big day tomorrow. I know you're going to rest up because you're going to be right there, second, third row maybe, watching all the action. Appreciate your time tonight.
Good to see you, Vinny. I'm setting my alarm.
All right, big day tomorrow. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about what Nick was talking about, this drug alcohol issue. And there was a lot of testimony today about that. We'll break it down when we return.
Did Mr. Depp have any relapses with drugs when you were working with him?
I don't recall.
Do you recall Mr. Depp and working with him ever take cocaine? Not that you necessarily saw him, but that you understood that he took cocaine.
I never saw Mr. Depp use cocaine.
Did you have any understanding that Mr. Depp took cocaine, whether you saw it or not?
I don't recall.
Did you administer drug tests to Mr. Depp?
In the beginning,
Did you see the results of the drug tests?
yes.
Did you see Mr. Depp being positive for taking cocaine?
I don't recall.
That was Johnny Depp's nurse. Didn't recall a lot of things, and it's understandable, right? It's many, many years ago, but I don't know if there were any records she could have used to refresh her recollection, but no, she just didn't recall. Sean Bett is Johnny Depp's head of security. He was also questioned about Johnny Depp's alcohol use and drug use. Let's listen.
I've seen him slightly intoxicated.
And again, based on your observations, what is Mr. Depp's demeanor like when he appears slightly intoxicated?
It's the same as if he, had a glass of sparkling water. I mean, he's just very low key. He's easy to get along with. And, he just seems to me, he handles alcohol a lot better than I would.
And over the course of your employment with Mr. Depp, have you ever seen him consume drugs?
I haven't.
Are you generally aware that Mr. Depp has used drugs over the years?
I am.
And how are you aware of that?
From him.
Okay, let's bring back in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who is outside the courthouse getting ready for the big day tomorrow. Johnny Depp taking the stand. Let me ask you about drugs and alcohol and how we think that may impact things here, because Nick Wallace, who's at the UK trial, was just telling us how that became a big focus in that case, and that Johnny Depp's recollection wasn't clear about exactly what he was doing, that he was blacking out because of the drugs and alcohol. What do we expect tomorrow when it comes to his recollection?
Yeah, Vinny, it's been a huge issue already in this case, from the Hurd's opening statements to their cross-examination of witnesses to the depositions, really homing in on the problem that Johnny Depp had with drugs and alcohol, and the monster would come out when he was on drugs and alcohol. And so we can anticipate that it will be a big issue when he takes the stand, and it may be some of the reasons he gives on the witness stand of not recalling certain times or events, much like his nurse, like you mentioned, who didn't recall a lot. It's been several years. But obviously, they're here to testify for their friend Johnny Depp. But on cross-examination, I can imagine that Hurd's attorneys were really focused on that, because their whole theory of this case, Vinny, is that it was his fault that his career went downhill because he was on drugs and alcohol to the point that he could not perform his duties. He was 7.5 hours late to a movie set because he was high. And not Amber Hurd and her allegations or her op-ed led to his demise in his career. He did.
All right, let's bring back in our guests, get a little more reaction to all that is happening here. Randy Kessler, a trial attorney, family law attorney. Let me ask you, Randy, this issue of drugs and alcohol, if the jury believes he's on drugs, does that equal abuse?
I don't know if it equals abuse, but let me be the first to say I think Johnny Depp loses his case, and he might have just lost it right here. Whether he gets recovery or not, he's trying to clear his name. He wants to say, I'm not who she says I am, and yet that gives her carte blanche to bring up anything about him aside from what he accuses, which he's accused of beating her, hurting her. All this other stuff that would not have been back in the public eye, that was in his past, is now back in the present. I think it hurts him terribly in this case, and I think it hurts his reputation. That's why a lot of celebrities don't file defamation cases, don't use cease and desist letters, because to argue it raises the issues again, and he's certainly not without fault.
I think his jury goes beyond that courtroom. I think his jury is a lot of Hollywood executives. I think he wants to paint a different picture of this relationship, that it wasn't a man abusing a woman, that at a minimum it's a case of mutual volatility. and then maybe make his argument to get those big movies again, because he's not getting them right now, Randy. So he's already lost.
Yeah, but time heals. Time heals. He could have let some time go by, and America loves a comeback, right? But now, instead of coming back from this, it's not in his past anymore. It's now in everyone's face, on everyone's paper, on everyone's feed, on their TikTok, on their news feed, whatever form they get it in. It's just all out there all over again. He set his time clock back a little bit. Now he's going to let some more time pass to rebuild his reputation, in my opinion.
Let's bring back in Lamar Mojdehizad, who's also a family law attorney out in L.A. Can his testimony, his story, can it bring his reputation back to where it once was in the eyes of the public, in the eyes of the executives out in Hollywood, based upon what's going to happen inside that courtroom beginning tomorrow?
Maybe. I think that the problem he's going to face is that he tells his story tomorrow, but we have a 6-week trial, right? So we have another 5 weeks of people all over social media, all over TV, talking about what he said. And then we have Amber coming in and giving her side of the story. So her side will be fresh in their minds when this is over. And this will just be, his testimony will just be day 5 of the trial.
Dr. Nadim Karim, let me ask you, any theories on why Johnny Depp uses alcohol and drugs? Is he trying to escape from something? Could it be a result of the abuse that he's gotten in his life?
Absolutely. It's classic case of self-medication, Vinny, in relation to a history of trauma.
Let me ask you this, though. Is it possible that he could be medicating himself from the abuse at the hands of Amber Hurd like he has alleged?
It's certainly possible. I think that if you look at the testimony today of the nurse, there's an August 9th, 2014 note where she refers to Johnny saying that he doesn't know if he can feel normal without his drugs. So to answer your question, Vinny, the bottom line is he could be self-medicating the trauma from Amber. He could also be concurrently self-medicating his life history of trauma. The bottom line is, will the jury be convinced that he's not just a drug addict in the sense of someone who became so self-medicated that he became an addict and therefore impaired himself in his behavior? So he's not the victim, he's in fact someone who is also the aggressor. And I think that the nurse's testimony is really interesting too, because we can't just gloss over it. She's known him since 2014 when she flew to his private island to do medication management. And she basically is telling him, look, it's normal for you to feel like you're never gonna feel normal without drugs. And it was a work in process with them, not to mention the fact that the doctor is also the nurse's doctor, which is just completely convoluted. So the bottom line is self-medication is something that we see all the time in individuals that are trying to really get treatment for a history of trauma. And the bottom line will be Johnny's ability to determine, or at least convince the jury, that this was just more than self-medication, but it was in fact a response to the violent infliction that Amber Hurd did upon him over the course of time that they were in this relationship. Because remember, the word toxic is also contained in the word intoxicating.
Absolutely.
So they fueled each other together, didn't they?
All right, Lamar and Randy, I have the same question for both of you because you're family law attorneys. You're in the middle of these battles all the time, day in and day out. I would never do that work as a lawyer. God bless you too. What does your gut tell you about what was really happening behind closed doors in this relationship? Lamar?
Mutual abuse. I think that they had a very, very toxic relationship, and whether or not Amber was the one who always initiated or Johnny was the one who always initiated, I would believe that it was a constant back and forth, and neither of them backed down if the other one started it.
Randy, based upon all your years of being in the midst of these battles, what does your gut tell you?
My gut tells me it's just like a divorce. Both sides think they're right. Everybody's a victim. You know, if she hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done this. It's all her fault. It's all his fault. Nobody ever sees the other side's perspective. Unfortunately, they're playing it out in trial, and you know, nobody's going to be right. Nobody's going to win, in my opinion.
Well, the lawyers always win, don't they, Randy? Shh.
You know, Vinnie, you had to go
Only
there.
kidding. You guys do great work. We need strong advocates always. All right, great job tonight, Dr. Nadim Karim. Appreciate it. Lamar Moshtahiyazad, thank you so much. Randy Kessler, always great to have you. When we come back, Chanley Painter will rejoin us, and we'll take a look at some of the looks inside that courtroom.
From Copperfit.
Yeah, Kenny, stay with me.
Johnny Depp arriving at court today, blasting some Bob Marley inside the truck. Let's bring back in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who's in Fairfax County, Virginia tonight, every night of this trial. Chanley, I want to take a moment because I've seen sort of a change, a drastic change today. But let's go through how Johnny Depp and Amber Hurd are appearing in court. You know, their sort of look, because it is part of the case. We'll begin with Tuesday. Let's take a look at Tuesday. How would you describe the Tuesday look for both of them?
Very professional. Obviously, I'm sure they have stylists. You know, obviously, Amber Hurd is a hair and makeup artist, and she's also wearing, looks like a tie, I think, on that screen. So both wearing ties first day.
Let's move now to Wednesday, the 13th, and take a look at what was happening on Wednesday, the 13th. And again, she's wearing...
There's the tie.
There's the tie and the suit. Johnny as well. Her hair is up. His hair is down.
Yeah, she wore her hair up sort of like that throughout the week. And again, blazer, she has the tie on, dark colors for both of them. That's also noticeable. Very professional looking for court.
Yeah, and they almost look alike in that one, the way they're dressing up. Let's go now to Thursday, the 14th, and see. This was probably the one day where Johnny Depp looked a little different. I mean, a lot of people were noticing that he didn't look as sharp on Thursday.
Right, day 4 of getting up early, going to court, maybe a little bit tired, hearing a lot of testimony, long days, as you know, Vinnie, being in court. But again, dark colors. She has on some glasses. Occasionally, he will put on his glasses inside the courtroom as well. But again, her hair pulled back with the braids. So again, still professional.
Now, finally today was probably the biggest difference that we saw, and it was particularly with Johnny Depp, but I think they both sort of look a little different. Now, all of a sudden, his hair's up and her hair is down.
Right. Oh, very noticeable, very glamorous. I love her hair, old Hollywood vibe, but less makeup than last week. Definitely noticeable again with the blazer, the jacket. He has a 3-piece suit on. And not the dark colored shirt, a white shirt today, Vinnie, and the hair pulled back. And of course, as you showed, as the bump in, very jovial, walking into court first thing this morning, blaring some music, in a good mood for week 2.
Yeah. Now, for him, it becomes a big issue because he's going to be taking the stand tomorrow. The jury's going to be focusing on him, and it's about credibility and how you come off, and part of credibility is how you look. There's some other big news today inside that courtroom involving one of the jurors. What can you tell us?
One of the jurors, I voiced a concern about his health issues. I know you've seen this jury. He was one of the few older, if you will, men on this jury, and he said that he had a hernia issue. He asked the court that he's uncomfortable sitting there for the long days inside the courtroom. She went ahead and dismissed him because there were 4 alternates, so now we have 3 alternates. We don't know who they are just yet, but now a total of 10, which brings us to 7 men and 3 women taking notes. And again today, very attentive, even with the deposition videos being played. They were glued to the screen for the most part. I didn't see what I noticed last Thursday, which was maybe some disinterest in what was happening inside the courtroom in the afternoon. They were all really into it today.
And we'll be into it tomorrow because tomorrow is the day that Johnny Depp takes the stand.
Absolutely. It's going to be a huge day, probably multiple days, that he's on that witness stand. And anytime I've noticed that an actual person takes the witness stand as opposed to a deposition video, it definitely perks up the jury and, of course, everyone that's sitting in the courtroom to pay attention. And they know he's a star. They know who Johnny Depp is. It's going to be big.
Game-changing day tomorrow. Chanley, get some rest. Big, big day tomorrow. Chanley Painter in Fairfax County, Virginia tonight. When we come back, we'll break down Johnny's testimony tomorrow. In Fairfax, Virginia, movie star Johnny Depp says his ex, Amber Hurd, ruined his career when she falsely accused him of domestic abuse. Now, this week, Johnny Depp expected to take the stand to tell his story.
I tried to close the door 3 times, Please, please.
What will he say about the violent incident in Australia where he severed his finger?
Part of his finger was missing. Again, I can't recall specifics other than they had a fight.
And what will he say about his alcohol and drug issues?
About how many times would you estimate you've seen Mr. Depp use cocaine?
20 times?
Tonight, all the big moments and all the big issues as we take you in depth for the latest in Johnny Depp versus Amber Hurd. Great to have you here on Closing Arguments. Buckle your seatbelts tomorrow. Johnny Depp on the stand. That's what we're hearing on the ground out in Fairfax County, Virginia. Chanley Painter reporting tonight. Johnny Depp expected to take the stand tomorrow to begin to tell the jury his story. And when I say jury, I mean, yeah, the jury inside the courtroom, obviously, but also the jury of public opinion and the jury of Hollywood executives. Johnny Depp filing this lawsuit, yeah, sure, if he wins, he'll take the money. But it's about clearing his name so he can do those big blockbusters again and not be on some list of canceled celebrities, which is where he claims he is now because of Amber Hurd. Those are his allegations, that she lied about him abusing her, so he's suing her for defamation. On the other side, there are counterclaims against Johnny Depp by Amber Hurd. She says that he's lying when he's calling her a liar and that he is ruining her career. So she's counterclaimed for a lot of money. Might be easier for her to collect from him than him from her, but we'll see. The jury will figure it all out. But as I said, the headline tonight, Johnny Depp testifying tomorrow. And I want to start with, when someone takes the stand, a jury is listening to them, but they're also watching them. Johnny Depp, I mean, this is the biggest part of the case, the biggest part of the trial. He's got to make sure that this jury believes him to have a chance at winning. And it begins with how he presents himself. And he's appeared quite differently inside the courtroom in 4 days of this trial. Take a look up on the screen and you'll see exactly what I am talking about. April 12th, okay, he's got glasses. He's put together pretty well. You move to the 13th, becomes a little bit looser. By the 14th, everyone was talking like, what's wrong with Johnny Depp on the 14th? Then he shows up today, almost looking like a completely different person, hair tied back. He had the glasses on for a while, took them off for a while. But what is the best look for Johnny Depp on the witness stand? To sell his story. That's what you have to do as a witness. Doesn't mean you're making it up, but they still have to believe it, which means you've got to sell it. Let me bring the think tank, because this whole think tank, when they have a trial, they want to control every little detail of that case, including how their clients look. Joining us tonight in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. In Stamford, Connecticut, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland. And in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to see everyone tonight. Al, I'll begin with you. I'm going to put them up on the screen. You've got 4 choices. Which of these 4 looks for Johnny Depp do you think gives him the best chance to sell his story to the jury?
I like the hair tied back, the April 18th look, the look today.
Why is that?
I think that gives, well, it gives, one, it takes the hair away from his face. It gives him a chance to make expressions, and he doesn't look like kind of a mad professor. He's got that Professor Irwin Corey hair on the 13th and the 14th. But at this point, he looks like, he looks dapper. He's got that school marm look, okay? It's coming across as being professional, that he has respect for the proceedings. And taking that hair out of his face is probably the best thing that can happen. I mean, he's a good-looking guy, and he's an expressive guy. This is going to give the jury a clear look at his expressions and his ability to speak and give his testimony. It's going to be definitely the best way to go in this type of thing.
Darnell Crossland, your thoughts?
I disagree 100% with Al. I know you're going to like that, Vinny. If you put up the pictures and look at April 18th, Exhibit A, look at the gentleman sitting to his right. That gentleman is used to wearing suits. He looks comfortable in a suit. I always tell my clients in these murder case, drug cases, if you don't wear a suit normally, don't start now. I always have them wear a polo with a button the top collar. Look how you naturally would normally look. Depp looks like a drunk who just put a suit on. And it fits the whole narrative of what Amber is saying about him. He should have wore something more cool, more chic. Amber, on the other hand, she's killing him. The way she's looking so natural and so stylish. So don't come into a suit like a lot of rappers. If you look at 100 Center Street, where Puff Daddy and all these rappers go when they get these charges, all of them come in with suits. The cuffs are dragging, the bottom is dragging to the floor. They're sagging. They don't look natural. They look like they just threw it on. As soon as they come out the courthouse, they throw their fitted cap on, a Yankee hat or something, because that suit is not them. So I always dress my clients up with a khaki pair of pants, or maybe a button-down shirt but no tie, and have them look to the jury natural and elegant.
Jennifer Brandt.
Vinny, I think the look from today is the look that he needs to go with. I disagree with Darnell. I agree with Al. He looks very professional here. He looks like he takes these proceedings seriously on the 18th. He certainly doesn't want to come in like he looked on the 14th, because there he looked pretty tired, like maybe he was out partying the night before or something, but he didn't look like he was really into these proceedings. The look today, on the other hand, he looks serious. He looks like someone who's ready to testify. I disagree with Darnell. I think that you want your client to dress up. You want your client to take the matter seriously and look like he's going to court, and not that he's going to a party or going out for the day or whatever. You want him to take this seriously, and you want to show the jury that he's taking it seriously. So the look from today is the look to go. Oh no, Darnell.
I just won 7 trials in a row, Vinny. They got to take it from the guy who won 7. I'm on 7 jury trials in a row.
He's on a hot streak. He's on a hot streak, Al.
But Vinny, okay, first of all, you know what I feel about guys that walk around with their batting averages? Okay, don't like it. Okay, don't like it at all. For a guy who's in the Hall of Fame for football and baseball at Don Bosco High School, I didn't keep my batting average in front of me. I didn't even know what my batting average was, but it must have been pretty good. I'm in the Hall of Fame. So that's all you have to say. You don't start bragging.
They're both bragging. Let's just get down to Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp needs to come in looking professional. I'm the family lawyer here. I'm the one that sees men and women in court like this. And you don't want him to come in his street clothes. You want him to come in a suit and look professional, and his hair back. He looks like he's going to be serious, and he's going to tell his story and convey to the jury, what he has to say. So
okay,
we agree on that.
Let's get to some of the testimony now, because one of the big issues, Johnny Depp is not just saying that he did not commit domestic violence. He is saying he is a victim of domestic violence. The most violent incident in this case, whether you believe Amber Heard or Johnny Depp, occurred down in Australia. Part of the story was that Johnny Depp's finger was severed. Let's listen to some of the testimony about that.
You will not see a single photograph of the vast majority of the abuse alleged by Ms. Hurd. Not one. And there is not a single photograph or video showing Mr. Depp becoming physically violent towards Ms. Hurd. The only medical report of an injury during their relationship was a severe one, and it was sustained by Mr. Depp. After an argument, shortly after their marriage, while the couple was in Australia, she berated him. And when he tried to leave, she became violent. She became so violent, in fact, she threw a vodka bottle at him that hit his hand and exploded. It severed the end of one of his fingers.
In March 2015, you traveled down to Australia to attend to Mr. Depp, is that right?
Yes.
After you attended to Mr. Depp and before you went to the hospital with him, did you go inside the house?
I went into the home to see the home. I went in to instruct one of the people with him to look for the tip of the finger, hoping that we would be able to put it back.
Was the tip of the finger found?
It was found.
Who found it?
I believe this man was their chef.
And do you know where he found it or where he told you he found it?
He said he found it in the kitchen area.
Did you observe any broken glass in the house?
Yes.
Did you tell what the glass was from?
No.
Was there blood around the broken glass?
There was blood around the home, as I had previously mentioned, but I didn't specifically see blood on glass.
Where did you see the broken glass?
In the kitchen area.
And that's where the finger, the top part of the finger was found as well?
Yes.
Do you recall going to Mr. Depp's house after learning that he had cut his finger?
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
That we went to the house and I don't even think I went in at first. Dr. Kipper went in and he had cut his finger and we took him to the emergency room.
Do you have any understanding as to how Mr. Depp cut his finger?
I heard different stories from people.
What were the different stories you heard?
I had heard that Amber threw a bottle of vodka at him. I had heard that he slammed it with a phone.
How important is this story, and how important is Johnny Depp's testimony about what happened to his finger, Darnell?
First of all, maybe it's just a different view on how they look at this. So this nurse just testified about what she heard. And you know what the first thing comes to your mind when you hear about what someone heard. They have to have some hearsay exceptions. But nonetheless, when you listen to what she heard and what she testified to, they're conflicting stories. One, maybe he got hit with a vodka bottle. The other, maybe he cut his finger when he slammed his phone. I think it's going to be very important for Johnny to clarify that because it's coming directly from him. Whether you believe it or not, people appreciate when the testimony comes directly from the source, not from these conflicting testimonies. His doctor, Kirk, I believe, he didn't give anything that I could hang my hat on either. He didn't see much of value. He only treated a patient after the fact. So I think it's going to be very important for Johnny to come in and clarify that.
Jennifer Brandt, your thoughts about the severed finger. This, you talk about a volatile relationship, domestic violence. This happened. We know it happened. The finger was found in the kitchen. How important is it for Johnny Depp to be able to convince the jury, convince the public that he was the victim in that situation?
I think this is critical for him because this is the most serious injury that we have, and he wants to be able to convey that it was at Amber's hands that he lost his finger. And I think the problem that he's going to have, though, is that I think he told other people that he never told anybody right away that this is what happened. So he has to sort of figure out how he's going to deal with that issue as well. Is he going to say, oh, he was just trying to protect her or what? But I think he has some explaining to do as to why he didn't come forward initially and say that it was, at her, that she threw the vodka bottle and that's how he cut off his finger. So, it's a little bit strange for him to come in now and say that this was the cause. So we'll hear. And also, it sounds like it was chaotic time. So does he have the recall for exactly what happened? And will all his, the whole story be consistent? That's something else that we'll have to hear about tomorrow.
Al, let's take a listen to Amber Hurd's perspective and version of what happened down in Australia with Johnny Depp's finger.
Now, he did cut off his finger, but the evidence will show my client did not do it. You'll also see pictures of what Mr. Depp did after he cut off his finger, when he dipped it in blood and paint and wrote graffiti all around the house.
No, there was a text message where you got a text message from Mr. Depp.
Yes.
And he said he cut his finger, correct?
I think that's what it said, yes.
Okay. And the reference from the emergency room said that Mr. Depp had sliced his finger with a knife, correct?
Yes, that's what he told, because I was present for that. That's what he told the emergency room doctor.
Al Wunsch, how is Johnny Depp going to be able to convince the jury that Amber Heard was responsible for severing his finger?
He will not get the Fickle Finger of Fate award on this one, Vin. There is no way that that story holds any vodka and or water whatsoever. You throw a bottle at someone and it cuts a finger. How did it break against a finger? If it was thrown against his head, that might be something. Thrown against his hand, maybe that's something. But thrown and it cuts a finger. Whereas her version is that he slammed the phone, okay, into the bottle, okay, and then that's what cut. That makes a lot more sense to me than someone flinging a bottle of vodka and it hits only my finger and it severs my finger. If he had said that, you know, it smashed against the wall and then I started picking up the glass and I cut myself, okay, that's still an act of domestic violence on her part because she threw the bottle at him. The fact that it missed doesn't mean it's any less domestic violence. It still is, and that would have been at least a lot more plausible than I got hit by the bottle of vodka. Okay, it makes no sense. I don't know how he's going to explain it, and it's going to have to take some tremendous acting chops to be able to get that one by this jury.
Okay, that's one of the issues Johnny Depp obviously will be dealing with on the stand tomorrow. Another one he's going to have to deal with is his drug and alcohol use, what impact it has on his memory, what impact it has on this case and on the jury. We'll talk about that next.
Did you ever reach your own conclusion that your brother had a problem with drugs and alcohol?
I knew my brother was drinking.
I'm sorry.
I knew my brother was drinking. But in terms of like drugs, honestly, I had only one medication that I really knew of that, was an issue for him.
And what was that?
I don't remember the name of the medication. It was a prescription medication.
What was it?
It was like a pain medication that he had been taking for a long time.
Okay, so that's Johnny Depp's sister, and seemingly underselling the issue of her brother's alcohol and drug use. So you can understand it. It's his sister, and maybe it's what he exposed to her. I don't know. But a little bit of a different picture painted in court today from Johnny Depp's private nurse, his head of security. We heard from his doctor as well. Let's take a listen to some of that testimony.
And on August 9th, 2014, it says patient expressed fears of never feeling normal without his drugs. You wrote that?
Yes.
Okay. And is that something that Mr. Depp told you?
According to my notes, yes.
Over the course of your employment with Mr. Depp, have you seen him consume alcohol?
I have.
How frequently?
It ranged. Sometimes I wouldn't see him drink at all, and there'd be other times he, would have a glass of wine or two.
And based on your observations, how would you describe Mr. Depp's demeanor after drinking alcohol?
His demeanor is the same as if you were talking to him. I would joke around with some of the other security personnel. He's, my terminology would be he's kind of too cool for school. He goes into that kind of Jack Sparrow mode, and he just, he's very likable, whether he drinks or he doesn't drink.
Okay, so how does this all play out in court? Because remember, in the trial in the UK, the drug and alcohol use really was a huge focus of Johnny Depp's adversaries. Basically, painting a picture that when he's drinking, he's under the influence, he doesn't remember what happened. And remember, Amber Heard's talking about a 3-day blackout down in Australia. What will he remember about what happened down in Australia? Let's bring in our think tank. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Let me ask you, Jennifer, I'll start with you. The drugs, the alcohol, it seems like it's part of the issues that he's dealing with. That seemed very clear inside the courtroom. But then how does that affect everything that he testifies to? What if he can't remember things? What if he can't recall things because of the drugs and alcohol? Is that a huge problem? Because Amber Heard, I'm sure, and her testimony will fill in those blanks.
That's right. And, it's a typical he said, she said, because there weren't a lot of other witnesses present at these times when they were together, when they were locked in together, when they were fighting. So there may not have been a lot of other people around to corroborate either side's story. And it's just a question of credibility. Has Johnny been blacked out other times? Are there instances where he doesn't remember other things? So I think that it's really important to establish that Johnny is clear-headed, that for him to establish that he's clear-headed and that he does remember everything and he wasn't under the influence of drugs or anything else that would prevent him from, knowing what went on. And Amber is going to come in because she wasn't on drugs allegedly at the time, so she's going to come in remembering everything and telling her version of the story, and it's going to be a question of credibility for the jury, for sure.
Darnell, how do you see this playing out? With in the UK, this became the Achilles heel for Johnny Depp in his lawsuit against The Sun, was that he was relentlessly attacked for drug and alcohol use when he was on the stand, and relentlessly attacked because of his memory and what he could and could not remember about what happened.
Well, here it comes, Vinnie. I agree with Jennifer Brandt on this one.
Wow, it's a milestone.
Credibility is everything. And the first thing we attack when you get the so-called eyewitness that sees something from her window is, do you wear glasses? And that goes towards credibility. In this particular case, look at Depp's diagnosis: bipolar disorder, chronic substance abuse disorder, ADHD, depression, insomnia, and chronic reflux. That all goes to his credibility. And not that he's a bad person, but which Depp are we talking about? So we're not going to have eyewitnesses, as Attorney Brandt said, but we are going to be able to bring in what's been coming in, which is all this diagnosis. And so a jury's going to have to say, well, it's hard to believe him. We don't know which one is he. He has bipolar disorder, and he has all this chronic substance abuse disorder. So that's going to go directly towards credibility. And no matter how nice of a guy he is, we can't dismiss that.
Al, I think he has to remember more than he remembered at the UK trial. I mean, I don't think he can testify that I don't remember what happened, because I think what will happen in the courtroom is Amber Hurd will fill in all those blanks.
Well, you know, a wise man once said about a drunk's testimony that it's 20% recollection and 80 proof. And that's what we've got here, is a gentleman who's got some serious alcohol issues. Remember, this is the man who owned the Viper Club, okay? The Viper Club was just known for its debauchery. It's the place where River Phoenix OD'd in front of the place after getting extremely high in the Viper Room. It was a place that all of the hard rock bands were playing, punk bands were playing, things along those lines. That Johnny Depp stood trial for a situation with regards to taking money from the club. And then the witness, the star witness in that trial, disappeared mysteriously. So, you know, this is a guy who's learned how to party hard. He had a $30,000 a month habit on wine. I mean, that's just extraordinary. I mean, believe me, don't get me wrong, I am truly impressed. But, you know, $30,000 a month in wine? So what are you going to do when you have a guy like this on the stand? He's going to have to talk about some of the problems he has recollecting, because if he doesn't, he's not going to come across as credible. And he's going to have to make the admission of the problems that he has, because his doctors and his nurses and his sister and his bodyguard have already laid that groundwork. He can't get up there and say they're all wrong. It would be foolish for him to do that. He'll have to say, listen, I have a problem. I'm trying to get through it. And he was in rehab, and then what did he decide to do? He ran out and hang out with Marilyn Manson. So, you know, these are the perfect things that you need for a guy who's going to get up there and try to sway a jury. He's got a lot of baggage, and he's going to have to unpack it very carefully if he wants this jury to believe him.
Jennifer, I think about, you know, where we are in society right now, and I don't think people necessarily automatically condemn someone because they have an addiction to whether it's alcohol, drugs, or anything else. So from that perspective, I don't think the jury will dislike Johnny Depp because of what he was doing. To me, the whole key is, what exactly can he remember? How specific can his testimony be? How sharp will his recollection be?
Right, I agree with you, Vinny. I think that society is very forgiving for people that have problems. I mean, there are a lot of people that have drug addiction and alcohol addiction, and it's rampant. It really, really is. So I think they're not going to hold it against him necessarily. And I agree that he is going to need to recall a lot of things and a lot more than he did in the UK. But don't forget, he's Johnny Depp, and I think he's going to get a lot of leeway from who he is, what he is. He's an actor. You know, actors are known sometimes to have a good time, party, and he's beloved. I mean, people think he's a great actor. They really admire him. You got a lot of young men on the jury who probably are fans of his, and I think he's going to get a lot of leeway in his testimony. I think people are going to give him a lot of breaks that maybe other people wouldn't get necessarily, and I don't think it's going to be as hard as we're all making it out to be. I think it's going to be a lot easier here for him to sort of get away with things and take what he learned from the UK trial and make it better this time around. So, you know, he's getting a second chance here.
He's been through this. It wasn't like a mock trial. No, it was a real trial with real cross-examination that lasted hours and hours and hours. So he's clearly prepared for that moment. Darnell, I'll give you the final word for this segment on Johnny Depp tomorrow on that witness stand telling his story. I would expect him to have those sort of charming moments, those very human moments where he tries to, or it may just come natural to him, make a connection with those jurors.
Well, here's the thing about, I've been watching this case and studying this case. Typically, say like in the OJ case, where OJ won in the criminal case but lost in the civil case, that wasn't about defamation. That was about the harm to a person. So now you have to ask yourself, when he's trying to connect with these people, as you say, is he connecting saying, give me $50 million because my career went down the toilet? Or is he saying, give me money because I was abused? So you're gonna have to figure out what your message is, because if you don't know what you're asking for, the jury don't know how to feel sorry for you. And so that's really the challenge. What are you asking these people for? And how are they gonna empathize with you asking for $50 million when you spent, as Al said, $30,000 a month on wine? And so I think that's gonna be the challenge.
Absolutely. Okay, when we come back, we're gonna talk about what I think may be the central issue in this whole case. What if this jury believes that it was mutual violence, that they were going after each other? It wasn't like one person was abusing the other person was just the victim of that abuse, but it was back and forth. You know, Amber Hurd hitting him, her hitting her. What does that mean in this case? Our think tank will let us know. We'll be right back.
Did you witness abuse by either?
I didn't witness.
Had you worked with Mr. Depp before working with Amber and Mr. Depp?
No.
Is it your testimony that while Mr. Depp may have said he wasn't violent with any of his other partners, there was violence from Mr. Depp toward Amber, correct?
Yes, you're right. He had been well controlled, I think, for almost, 20, 30 years. And both were victims of abuse in their homes. But I thought he had been well controlled for decades. And then with Ms. Hurd, he was triggered, and they engaged in what I saw as mutual abuse. Sometimes, I know she led on more than one occasion and started it to keep him with her, because abandonment and having him leave was her worst nightmare. And I think he may have initiated it on occasions too. I'm less sure on.
This is a big issue, I think, in this case. Mutual abuse. That's their marriage counselor giving her analysis, her opinion of what was going on. And she said mutual abuse sometimes initiated by Amber Hurd. A little less sure, but thinks probably sometimes initiated by Johnny Depp. Now, let me remind you what Amber Hurd has said publicly. First, let me show you what she said over in the UK outside the courthouse at the first trial.
It has been incredibly painful to relive the breakup of my relationship, to have my motives, my truth questioned, and the most traumatic and intimate details of my life with Johnny shared in court and broadcast to the entire world.
Okay, now I want to also play for you. This is from the opening statement. Her attorney reading part of the Washington Post op-ed, which is the subject of this defamation suit. It was 6 minutes in length. Here's a small piece of it.
Like many women, I had been harassed and sexually assaulted by the time I was of college age, but I kept quiet. I did not expect filing complaints to bring justice, and I didn't see myself as a victim. Then, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out.
All right, let me bring back in the think tank, because I think this is probably the most important question, at least so far in this case. If this jury believes their marriage counselor that this was mutual abuse initiated by Amber Hurd and maybe initiated by Johnny Depp, is she a domestic violence victim? Is she being truthful when getting out there and making these statements about being a domestic abuse victim? If it's back and forth and mutual and initiated by her? Al?
Ben, you never hit a woman, first point, okay, never. So, Johnny Depp could have gotten out of the house and left. If this is the type of person she is, he understands that, then he leaves, okay? This verdict is looking like it could be a mutually assured destruction, as we used to call in the old days with the Soviet Union.
Let's get back to the question now. This is a very specific question, okay? Is she a victim? If this is mutual abuse, if it's just two people who are wrong for each other, and she initiates the confrontations.
Well, she's a water sign, he's an earth sign, together they make mud. Okay, that's what we have here. And under those circumstances, they are both victims. And that's what this jury is going to probably come down and say. Neither one has proven or disproven the case. They have both been guilty of some form of abuse. And therefore, okay, we're going to cut it down.
I got an answer from you. Look at that.
Away.
I got the answer, because this is a very specific question, Darnell. Is she a victim? If this jury believes what the marriage counselor testified to, which was mutual abuse initiated by Amber Hurd, maybe sometimes initiated by Johnny Depp, not sure about that. Those are her words, her testimony, her evidence?
I'm gonna have to be a lawyer here, Vinny. Let's get right back to the
Sounds
issue.
to me like you're not going to answer the question if you're going to be a lawyer.
Well, I'm a different kind of
He's
lawyer.
not agreeing with me either.
She's definitely a victim. She's definitely a victim. She's a victim 100%. He's a victim. But as a lawyer, we have to focus on why we're in court. This is a defamation lawsuit. So what we're doing is wondering about how much of a victim is her, is she, how much of a victim is he. We're losing the issue, which is defamation. And I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. He loses this case because the jury is not going to believe her or him. They're going to believe the people who testified, such as Kipper and the therapist. And you got to realize something that's noteworthy. Some of these people that were called to testify, Kipper was a defense witness. And so the witnesses, I think, are very credible because they're really not beholden to one side or the other. They're just telling the truth. And if you believe the therapist that Amber was a trigger for Johnny, and you disbelieve Amber's little speech she gave, I feel so bad that the whole world is going to know about all the stuff in our relationship. Boo, boo, boo. She wrote about it in the Washington Post. Now she's upset or she's angry that the whole world's going to know about it. You wrote about it. So once you once you separate those two and listen to the witnesses down the middle, you're going to find that there cannot be defamation, because if it's her truth and truth is a defense, it doesn't matter how much she gives out. It matters if it's her truth and we got testimony supporting that he abused her. It doesn't matter how much he abused her. It's her truth and she could talk about it. That's what this lawsuit's about.
Let me ask you, Jennifer Brandt, how do we define a victim of domestic violence? If it's a relationship where it's back and forth, it's mutual, they're verbally and maybe physically abusing one another, she's initiating, he may initiate sometimes. Do we consider them both victims? Do we consider them both perpetrators? Like, how do we deal with that? And is she being truthful when she comes out as a victim under circumstances where it's back and forth?
Yeah, well, there's a lot here that you want me to unpack, Vinny, but I'll just say this.
Yeah, I always give you the hardest ones, the hardest questions.
I know. I have to deal with these two, giving their opinions, and I have to wrap it up for them. That's what I have to do. But here's the bottom line, Vinny. No one should hit anyone in a relationship. That's number one. But, if she's claiming she's a victim, domestic violence, I don't think so. She was provoking him. He's provoking her. This was a bad mix. But I think the main thing that's going to come out of this, even if neither one of them gets the money that they think they deserve or that they're asking for, his reputation may be saved as a result of this trial. Because if it does come out, and if you do believe that marriage therapist, that she was provoking him, she was an instigator, she wasn't so innocent, he wasn't just, beating up on her and he's a terrible guy, his reputation was harmed, he says, because of all of what she said, that she was an abused woman. If she's not so innocent in all of this, and that's what comes out of this trial, I think he gets his credit, his career gets back. People may want to hire him again. He is not such the bad guy that she's making him out to be. People say this was a toxic mix. They're both bad. They both didn't belong together from the outset, and let them go on their way. And, maybe we'll hire him again for a different part. Maybe he'll, be back on the movie screen again.
All right.
And that's what I think he wants. That's what I think.
I think that's absolutely what he wants. I don't.
And that's not going to happen.
Okay, Al says it's not going to happen.
It's going to happen.
He's ended up shooting himself in the foot. He's made it worse for himself because he brought this out. There's
I
no
don't think
good
so,
that
Al.
comes.
I don't think he had a choice. I don't think he had a choice. His reputation was going to be damaged. He's damaged goods unless he fought back. And I think what's coming out of this trial is going to help him, not hurt him.
Okay, when we come
Hollywood
back,
trials never work for the actor. They never do.
13th juror, your verdict. What one question do you want to ask Johnny Depp? Johnny Depp set to take the stand tomorrow inside the courtroom. And I asked you if you had an opportunity to ask him one question. What is that one question? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day from Lucy tonight. I'd ask if he is in recovery now, and if so, how long has he been substance-free? The follow-up question I would ask is if he's receiving counseling with a qualified professional. Al Wunsch, do you think that's a question his attorney should ask him tomorrow?
Well, you know, I mean, he's got to come across, he's got to, like the old Don Rickles, I'm a nice guy, okay? And part of it is recognizing that he's made a mistake in his life and that he's trying to correct himself and he's trying to be a better citizen. That's the key thing in this. I just want to correct one thing. It was the Viper Room, not the Viper Club. Vinnie.
Gotcha.
I know you would have called.
Viper Room.
I know you would have called me on that one. And,
yeah, it would have brought your batting average down at least like 10 points.
It would have been like the 17-0 in the small claims court that
exactly.
Darnell has.
Oh no, Darnell has murder cases. Darnell Crossland, here's my one question. Here's my one question for Johnny Depp tomorrow, and that is, Darnell, Johnny Depp, do you wear the same glasses as Darnell Crossland? I'm looking at those glasses. They look awfully familiar. I know you wear expensive glasses. Johnny Depp, I presume. What kind of glasses you wearing tonight, Darnell?
I got these at the Viper Room.
You did? Beautiful.
Yeah, these are Viper frames.
All right, but you both look good. You both look good. Tina tonight, why did you tell the emergency room doctors and your doctor that you cut your finger? That's an important question, isn't it, Darnell?
I do. It goes back to, I'm going to agree with Jennifer Brandt earlier. Why did you lie then? If you lied then, are you lying now? Why didn't you tell the truth from the beginning? Were you trying to cover up something that you did to yourself or that Amber did to you? Either way, you lied. And so I think that's a very important question.
All right, here's from Star. You ready, Jennifer? Star asking, Johnny Depp, do you regret ever meeting her because it's messing with his life and career? Jennifer Brandt, if I had to take the temperature of our viewers, they are clearly have a fever for Johnny Depp. They've got Johnny fever.
Oh, that's for sure. No, I don't think that's a question that's a question that he's asking himself for sure. I don't know if it's a question that his lawyer needs to ask him or that's something that needs to come out. We're way past that.
I think it might be objectional. This is from Cynthia.
I just want to say,
go ahead.
Vinnie, you have to. Darnell looks good in a suit. You know, that's one thing. He and Johnny. Johnny may not look so good in a suit, but Darnell does. He looks comfortable wearing that suit.
Look at that. Everyone's getting along. It just took an hour. Jennifer Brandt, Darnell Crossland, Al Wunsch, great as always. Thank you so much. We'll see you again really soon. We've got something else to take care of when we come back. Don't forget, Johnny Depp tomorrow morning. Turn it on. Coverage all day long. Our cameras, our microphones inside the courtroom. But when we come back, I have a favor I need to ask you when we return. remind you one more time, tomorrow, Johnny Depp on the witness stand inside the courtroom. Cameras, microphones from Court TV will be there. Make sure you check it out. All right, before we go tonight, I have a photo to show you. This is Duvon Dennis, just 14 years old, missing out of Philadelphia since the middle of March. If you see Duvon, please call 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Ben Salem Police Department. The number is on the screen. Please, if you see Duvon, make the call. Let's get him home. That's it for tonight. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening. And as always, don't forget to hug the kids.
This program is based upon a true story and contains reenactments. Portions of